What's up, everybody? Welcome into Hockey Sense. Listen, we're coming to you a day earlier today, or this week. So don't let me throw you off, but between the Blues schedule and my son's hockey schedule, I'm off to Detroit this weekend for a youth hockey tournament. Looking forward to that, so I thought we'd bring it to you a day early this week. So don't be confused if you're listening on Friday. The only difference is we won't be reacting to the Blues game on Thursday night at home against San Jose, but we are reacting to this 4-game road trip. I mean, first off, Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. You know that. All the great people over there at First Community. They've got that Little Blues program, which is incredible. Get your son or daughter signed up today. You get a handful of ice times, very reasonable price. All the equipment comes with it as well, so it doesn't get much better than that. Little Blues. Get yourself hooked up, and it's a great Christmas present for your son or daughter. Like, are they saying, hey, I want to play hockey, I want to try hockey? Well, before you start shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars, find out if they even like it. This is the best way to go about doing it. It's how my son got started. So many of the kids that he played with or plays with now, and they all got started playing Little Blues. So check that out. Hey, happy anniversary to First Community too, man. Big shout out. 90 years now for First Community. Over 400,000 members do their banking with First Community because First Community, I told you last week, and I've been telling you for several weeks, it's not really just a bank. It is truly a community. It's a credit union, a non-for-profit financial cooperative. So if you have an account at First Community, you're a member, you're part of the family. See if you qualify and do that today. Robert Thomas, we'll start with that. We had Doug Armstrong on Hockey Sense last week. Great conversation. And the best part about doing it now from Half Coast Studios with Maddie and the boys is that it just never goes away. So once it's on YouTube, it's on the podcast app, you can go back and listen to it whenever you want. So if you missed our conversation with Doug Armstrong last week, go listen to it either on the podcast app or on YouTube. Just search Hockey Sense with Andy Strickland. You'll find it. And we talked about Robert Thomas, not making the Four Nations team. Let me put this out there right now because, Doug Armstrong is going to be the general manager of Team Canada's Olympic team coming up in 2026. Robert Thomas will be on that team. Somebody's going to play their way off from this particular roster. Not every player who plays for Canada coming up in the Four Nations is automatically going to be on the roster when the Olympics come around in another year. It's just not going to happen. And Thomas was a guy who was 1,000% on the radar heading into the season. He broke his foot. That set him back. But listen, with Army being the GM, he'll make a push for Robert Thomas as long as Thomas does his part, which is win faceoffs, be a real high-quality penalty killer, be able to play against the other team's top centers and have success, win that battle, be on the plus end of things, game in and game out in terms of your head-to-head matchups. Be able to run a power play, let the power play come through you, use your world-class playmaking skills. He's doing all of that. I mean, now that he's healthy, too, and you look at Robert Thomas coming off of this 4-game road trip. He had 3 points in Vancouver on Tuesday. He had 9 points in the 4 games and a +7. I mean, are you kidding me? This guy's always also averaging over 21 minutes of ice time. And as a forward, that's an awful lot. Parayko, by the way, over the course of the 4 games on the road, where the Blues went 3-1, winning 2 of them in overtime, he played over 26 minutes per game on average on this road trip. I thought Justin Falk had a good game last night. It's good to see him kind of start to get his game back in order. I'm curious to see what this team looks like defensively once they get Nick Leddy back. And you just hope that doesn't disrupt the chemistry they have going on right now. P.O. Joseph played okay in Vancouver. He was fine. Matthew Kessel, I think, is starting to find his groove a little bit in terms of his confidence and just using his size and his strength. Playing simple, being smart defensively in terms of how he positions himself, and making the easy play and take what's given to him. We're seeing that now from Matthew Kessel, much like we saw that from him a year ago. So what does this defense look like when Nick Leddy comes back? And whenever that is, it doesn't appear to be anytime soon. I mean, you look at Nick Leddy, he left the team. He came back home to be further evaluated. He's dealing with a very kind of a weird injury, a little bit strange in terms of what he's got going on. You wish him the best, man, and it'd be great to get Nick Leddy back in the lineup. The Blues are chasing teams, though, and they all keep winning, too. You look at Colorado and some of these other teams that continue to win. Vancouver still has 3 more points over St. Louis, so that was a huge point for them to get even, though they lost in overtime. But to find a way to get that point by coming from behind. They were down by a couple of goals. They got the tying goal late in the third period. They don't even have JT Miller back yet. They're getting Thatcher Demko back now. Of course, he played his first game against St. Louis in almost a full calendar year. He hadn't played a game since the first game in the playoffs last year. He had been out a lot, over 220 days, to be exact, since the last time Thatcher Demko had a start in an NHL game. But you get JT Miller back, who's a driver, brings everything together, so much skill and so much ability. That team, I don't think we give that team enough credit for how good they are. Watching them play last night, I feel like Quinn Hughes never comes off the ice. Does he ever come off the ice? Is he on the ice the entire game? Is there more than one Quinn Hughes playing for the Vancouver Canucks? And I think it's interesting. I'm going to ask Jamal Mayers this coming up in the next segment. Sam Rosen, by the way, is going to join us coming up later. I don't know how many questions I'll get in about the New York Rangers. It's not really his place to answer those on behalf of the Rangers. I know that can be tricky when you are the play-by-play voice, and you have been for 40 years. Listen, he's allowed to give his opinion. I'm curious to hear what he has to say, but I don't want to put him in a tough spot either. You want to get real opinions. It's probably best to get, a media member out who isn't fully connected to the organization. It's tough. Listen, I wish everyone could always speak freely, but we all know that it doesn't work like that. And when you represent the team, you have to certainly, be careful and kind of walk that line. It doesn't mean you have to sugarcoat everything, and it doesn't mean you have to lie or be fake. I think that's where you kind of lose your credibility and the trust of the viewer, is when you start doing that. But you probably can't bash them at the level that the fans would want. And just to give you an example, I had Army on last week, and I got people commenting and being like, you should have asked tougher questions. It's like, listen, I'm not a fan. I feel like I asked appropriate questions. I'm not looking to grill Doug Armstrong to make the fans happy with some of the grilling. I mean, the team obviously is moving in the right direction right now. They made the coaching change. And I think, we covered a lot of ground last week speaking to Army. So I get it. Listen, trust me. I used to be on the other side where I wasn't connected with the team, and I was a free-spirited writer. And I loved those days, too, where you could just give your opinion and speak freely. And I think the fans love that. You're crushing people and players and whatever, and management from other teams and coaches from other teams, players around the league. But that's not always that much fun either. One thing I don't miss from my days just writing and doing radio is having anybody be upset. I did not enjoy that. Sometimes you're just trying to give your opinion. You're trying to be fair. And listen, you cover different people. You're covering different personalities. Some are more thin-skinned than others, and we've dealt with that over the years, at least here in St. Louis. I will say this about Army. He's one of those guys that doesn't get too worked up about what you say, as long as it's within the white lines, right? And you're not crossing that line and getting personal. I try to never really get personal either. Some people will take it personal, but it really never is personal. We're just talking hockey, and you're trying to give your opinion. And for a long time, I will say this, when I was writing, I was the only one in town giving daily opinion on the team. Nobody else was doing that. I mean, the beat writers who were working for the local paper here in town, they would write about the team once every 6 months. literally maybe 2-3 columns a year on the St. Louis Blues back then. The Rams were here, the Cardinals were very successful, and obviously the Cardinals are the Cardinals, and they get the bulk of the attention. And so therefore, there just wasn't a whole lot of attention on the Blues. So I was writing about the Blues every single day. I was talking about the Blues every day. And not everybody loves that. I'll give you an example. I remember when Dave Checketts was the owner, and I was doing a radio show with Bernie Miklasz at the time, and I had thrown out there that Matthew Schneider was available. I think the team kicked tires on Matthew Schneider, but for whatever reason, they decided at the time that the cost to get Schneider here in St. Louis was too high. And so they just didn't go out and get Matthew Schneider, which is fine. Bernie and I had Dave Checketts on the radio on a random afternoon, and I was co-hosting the show with Bernie, and we had Checketts on, and he drops this bombshell that he wanted to buy the Rams. And we're like, whoa, okay, like, you want to buy the Rams? Like, the NFL team, the St. Louis Rams, he wanted to buy the Rams. They already owned the Blues, and it was pretty much owned by a hedge fund, and we don't have to get into all of that, but he wanted to buy the Rams all of a sudden. So in my next story, maybe even later on that day, I wrote that the Blues can't afford Matthew Schneider, but they can afford the St. Louis Rams. Like, it just didn't make sense. Obviously, just kind of joking, having fun, but that night I run into Checketts and Mike McCarthy, and I love those guys, man. I mean, listen, we went back and forth, and, you know, Mike McCarthy and I ended up, you know, coming together, and you know, I feel like I have a good relationship with Mike. I can call him today if I needed to. But Checketts kind of bumped into me in the press box. Like, you could walk this way, but he purposely kind of shouldered me, and he made a comment about we can't afford Matthew Schneider or something like that. So they took that really personal. So sometimes you just got to be careful. You don't want to get people upset. I will say that. Sometimes it's inevitable, and you have to. And it is what it is. But in the case of having Sam Rosen on, we'll hear what he has to say about the Rangers. I don't expect him to come on here and bash the team for how they handle this whole Brady Tkachuk situation, or the Jacob Trouba situation, or the fact that they keep losing every single night. They play Buffalo today on the day that we're recording this. Somebody's got to win that game, right? I mean, somebody's going to walk out of the building and win between Buffalo and the New York Rangers. But you look at the 4-game stretch from the Blues, as I get back to the road trip now, here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Parayko had a hell of a road trip, 3 points in 4 games, plus player, averaged over 26 minutes per game, like I said. Broberg, plus player, had 3 points in 4 games. Jordan Kyrou, 4 points in the 4 games, including 3 goals, had a beautiful power play goal in yesterday's game against Vancouver. Great passing play, great setup, and you love seeing those. I will say this, when the Blues are on their game, they are as good of a passing team as you're going to find in the NHL. I mean, their passing was dynamic last night, and it was in the third period when you go back to Edmonton, when they put Kyrou and Buchnevich and Thomas back together, which I like. Listen, one thing you're going to learn about Jim Montgomery is that he will mix and match lines. Those lines will be in the blender as much as any team in the league. Joel Quenneville used to do that a lot as well, and I don't really mind it. I'm sure some players, if you're losing, would complain that maybe it prevents you from developing any type of chemistry with your line mates and whatnot because of the fact that you're constantly changing lines. But, you know, you go back to Thomas, Kyrou, and Buchnevich, and when it goes stale and they start overpassing and they're not producing offense, then you go ahead and make that change and you switch it up again. Dylan Holloway, if I were to pick an MVP of this road trip, and the easy choice would be Robert Thomas. Again, 9 points in 4 games and a +7. I don't know how you don't give it to him. But Dylan Holloway's a close second. This guy, I mean, the way that he's skating, how hard he's working, how dynamic he is with the puck right now. He's setting guys up. He's getting himself in position to score. The way he's shooting the puck. And let me remind the fans, including all the Edmonton Oilers fans who might be tuning in, that this guy is 22 years old. 22. And Broberg's 23. I don't like to pile on the Oiler fans, man. I say this every time, but I'll never understand how they let these guys get away. I just don't get it. At that age, 2 players you draft in the first round. You know, when you see a Philip Broberg, and I thought of this even last night watching Quinn Hughes, and I'm not saying Broberg's Quinn Hughes because he's not. Hughes may get 100 points this season. There really is nobody like him. Makar would be the closest. And I'm going to ask them all, who would you take on your team between Makar and Hughes? And the easy answer is Makar. I think he's got the better reputation between the 2 players. But if you watch Quinn Hughes play, man, this guy is he's just different than anybody else, including Makar. He doesn't play exactly the same as Makar. He may even cover more ground than Makar. And he may have better hands than Makar. He's amazing. I mean, give me either one. But if Quinn Hughes was an option, I would have a hard time passing him up. And same thing with Makar, man. I absolutely love Cale Makar. So, you know, it's tough to say. But Broberg, at 23 years old, man, the only way you get these guys, like a Quinn Hughes, for example, is by drafting them. You don't get them in their low 20s unless you find a way to draft them. That's the only way you get him. And for the Blues to get this guy at 23, by signing him to an offer sheet, will go down as one of the biggest steals, certainly in Blues history, and in recent memory around the National Hockey League, too. That's why you just don't see too many of these deals being executed. Either the team matches or teams are smart and they just don't leave that carrot dangling out there for somebody to step up and snatch them. So we got lots to get into with Jamal. We'll do that here on the other side. Again, First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. Check us out. Subscribe everywhere. And love having everybody's on board, you know, who's been watching and you know, supporting the show since we came over here to Half Coast Studios. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Do not sleep on the party supplies. All the paper goods, everything that you may look for. Are you having holiday parties? What do you have going on at your house coming up? Listen, if you're having people over, if you're entertaining, do not sleep on Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. All the paper supplies, all the decorations, they are more than just the beer, wine, and booze and everything else you can find. Do not sleep on the decorations and the paper supplies. Many of the locations have drive-thrus. You can do curbside pickup. You got to download that app, though. That's where you get all the great deals. Find the Dirt Cheap nearest you and do that today. Four Hands Brewing Company. Get that Cam and Strick Mango Lemonade Hard Seltzer, the best hard seltzer on the market. You won't find a better one anywhere else, I'll tell you that. The Mango Lemonade. Cam and I specifically taste tested to make sure that was the right one, and it was. We knew it right off the bat. We tried so many different flavors and options, and that was the one right off the bat that we said, wow, this is the one. Mango Lemonade. I mean, we all know mango and lemonade comes together very, very nicely. They've got all the tasting rooms for Four Hands Brewing Company does. The downtown location, 1220 South 8th Street. They've got the Chesterfield location, the new location there in Kirkwood, food from Peacemaker there, food from High Point in Chesterfield. They've got the new location they just announced, and there's going to be a job fair coming up. If you're looking for a job, they'll be staffing the new location at Lambert Airport. Four Hands Brewing Company. Kevin Lepp, man, you got it going on in a major way. No doubt. All right, Lordo's Diamonds, man. Get that special someone something special over this holiday season at Lordo's Diamonds. Stop on in, say hi to Mike and Jimmy Lordo. Nobody does it better. LordosDiamonds.com, right there in the heart of Ladue, right next to Truffles, 314-432-8008. 314-432-8008. It doesn't matter if you have a $100,000 budget or a $500 budget. They are going to treat you exactly the same. It doesn't matter. And they're going to take care of you and make sure you get something that it's going to make somebody very, very happy this holiday season. Stop on in there. Again, you can call them, 314-432-8008 for Lordo's Diamonds. Blue Note Roofing. David Novak, man, he celebrated his birthday last week. This guy is the best roofer in the region. If you're watching this, he will come service your roof. Hey, check it out. Talk to your insurance company. Some insurance companies out there, once your roof gets to a certain age, I believe 10 years, they will not pay for it to be replaced. So if you're having issues with your roof, let David know that. Come on over, check it out. And if you need a new roof and you know he's going to be honest with you and treat you the right way, then do it before all of a sudden, okay, now I need a new roof, but the insurance company won't pay for it. Don't put yourself in that position. David can do a lot of things from roofing to gutters to a soffit and fascia, windows. They do everything over there with Blue Note Roofing. Look for the big yellow truck with the Blue Notes all over it, man. He's a diehard hockey fan. He'll talk pucks with you. 314-920-5713. Blue Note Roofing. All right, let's step aside. Jamal Mayers, he's going to come in and join me. Looking forward to our conversation with Jammer. We do it every week here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. I'm Andy Strickland. Don't go anywhere. All right, back here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. What does Jammer have in store this week? Merry Christmas to you.
You too.
Maddie, can we decorate the studio? We need some, decorations or something. We need to make this a little more...
Hey, do you go real tree or a fake tree?
Oh, fake tree all the time.
Oh, I got to tell you a quick story. We got a real tree. I was all adamant about the real tree. And Chaminade used to sell trees.
They still do.
So about 3 years ago, we got one up there.
Yeah.
Loved it. Beautiful tree. Put it up, decorated it. 2 days later, there's this horrendous smell in our house.
Really?
I have no idea what it is. As I get closer to the tree, I realize the tree smells like urine.
Oh, God.
So I legit had to undecorate the tree and throw the tree out. This is unlike, imagine what this looked like from my neighbors. I come running out, upset, all hot with this tree. Christmas is over. Throw it out like December 11th, December 12th.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing that a deer or something might have urinated on the tree. And once you started watering it, it started releasing the aroma.
So what'd you do? You went out and got a fake one?
So we got a fake tree.
Yeah, fake ones are the best. I like the real ones. I feel like they make a mess.
They do, but the smell.
The smell in the house. Oh,
I like the smell.
It smells good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Chaminade has a great tree lot, man. We walk over there. Nothing will put you in the Christmas spirit like going to a Christmas tree lot.
Just don't pick up one of the ones that got peed on by a deer.
No, you got to, I don't know how you detect that. And you got to know what size you're getting, too.
Yes.
I see some people take them into their house and it doesn't fit. It's too tall. It's too wide. How do you get it to your house? You put it on top of your car?
Oh, yeah, that's part of the fun, right?
Okay.
Figuring out how they're going to tie
cut it down yourself?
No.
Like it's already cut down? You just choose which one you want? It's
cut down. They cut it off so it accepts the water or whatever, however they do it.
Yeah.
And then they put it on top of your tree.
It's a fire hazard, you know.
Yes.
They can be a fire hazard.
Be careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. Yeah, so hopefully we decorate the studio next week. Maybe we'll have a little, holiday flair here inside the Half Coast Studios.
Good idea.
Although we're shutting down for a few weeks over the holidays.
When are you doing that?
Christmas week and New Year's week. I'll let you know.
All right. That'd be good to know.
Okay, the Blues just go on a what's the toughest road trip? Like you played here in St. Louis. So if you're like a Midwestern team, you played in Chicago, what are the most difficult road trips? Are they the trips through Canada? Is it the West Coast trip in the States? Is it heading out east? What is it?
Well, you're really lucky being in the central time zone because you even when you go west, you only lose it's 2 hours and it's an hour the other way. So let me explain it to you this way. I thought it was tough having played only in St. Louis for 10 years and only in the Central Division, realizing what that was like. And then when you play in the West, Calgary and San Jose, now you got a problem. Because when you go east.
Yeah, you're going for how long?
Not only how long, let's say you play the next day. If you practice in the morning and you leave at 1 o'clock, you fly for 4 hours, 5 hours to get to Boston. You get to Boston, it's now 9:30. Like
I know, your body clock.
You lose the whole day and you're not tired.
Oh, God.
So that always messed me up.
I should do, somebody give me some analytics on that.
Going east, it was always from playing for the Flames and playing for the Sharks was always the toughest.
Somebody let me know how these teams on the West Coast, how they do when they go east.
It'd be interesting to know. Usually they go out a day earlier.
These teams, we talk to players all the time who played a long time with Philly, Jersey, the Rangers.
Sleep in their own bed.
Their travel is they're never like home after midnight, ever. Well, I'm saying when they
must be nice
when they're traveling. Philadelphia. I mean, there really is an advantage to that, isn't there?
There should be.
Yeah.
As long as they're not going out. I don't think they go out anymore anyway.
They don't do that.
No.
Did you have teammates that just went out every single night? Every night?
They played like they went out every night,
Yeah.
but they were going out a lot. And sometimes you got a little veteran guy giving them a tap on the shoulder saying, okay, time to settle down.
Is it frowned upon? Like, do you have to go behind your coach and your GM's back when you're going out all the time on the road, or no? Is there a curfew?
There is a curfew. It's an understood curfew. That's, I believe, 11 o'clock night before game.
Okay.
You do have opportunities to go out. So there's no need to like abuse the curfew.
Right.
So it's just like, for those who did, you're just like, if you just wait 3 days, we're likely to have a day off.
Well, and you have a game the next day. What do you want to roll in at 2 a.m?
Exactly.
It's actually good. Okay, you know what? This guarantees that I'll be in and I'm going to get some sleep.
And you know what? You can have a nice dinner, some couple glasses of wine.
Yeah.
And be back by 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Did you like going to dinner with the entire, like a big group of guys, or just
No, not because I didn't like big group of guys. Just the dinner was too long.
Too long, yeah.
Like we always, not to sound, I don't know how this is going to sound. I'm just going to tell you how it was. You get to a really nice restaurant, and most people, it's like a special occasion.
Right.
We just want to eat dinner and get back to the room.
Right.
So we always would say, we're not here to wine and dine. We just would like to get this rolling. So that I always like to, as you get older, I like to organize it. Hey, who wants to meet? And usually there'd be a group of 6 to 8 would probably be the max. And you get more than that, then you probably have to do two tables.
Off topic. And I talked to Chaser about this the other day. He was in doing some stuff with Cam and I. Do you see the video with Biz and all this stuff going on?
I caught glimpses of it.
You ever see anything like that? Like, did you ever, like, as a, have teammates, or like when you're playing, like, ever encounter that situation where, I mean, like, that is super unusual, right? I mean, I know players kind of maybe get into it a little bit, but he's not getting into it. He's like trying to interfere with the staff at a restaurant who are being, verbally assaulted and maybe even physically assaulted. When you look at what took place at the country club prior to that, when they got to that restaurant, Houston's, and then all of a sudden it's like a 6-on-1 brawl. Scary situation. I said this to Biz last night, like, in all seriousness, that could have been a very scary situation. I give him all the credit in the world for stepping up. I think not enough people do that. There's a lot of people just standing there and like watching. I don't know what you do, Jammer, in that situation.
And I messaged him as well. And the thing that's scary to me is I feel like he's lucky that it is a vacation town. Like they were there on vacation, right?
Yeah.
They're there on a trip.
Scottsdale.
Because local people in today's world, even if you beat them up, what are they doing? What are they going back to the truck for? After you beat them up.
A weapon.
A weapon.
Yeah.
And so that was my biggest fear was, thank God they didn't have
a baseball
weapons.
Bat or even worse than that, right?
Yeah, people have conceal and carry. That's the thing in the States. Like,
especially in Arizona too.
It's not that's a real thing. And like, it's not even about winning the fight. It's like, what are they going to do after you after that happens? Like, is it really over?
Right.
Like, it's that part to me is more scary than the fight.
And they're kicking them in the head and stuff.
It's ridiculous.
6-on-1. Man. Yeah, that was a scary situation. I'm glad he's okay, but I also.
Do you think he gets to eat free there for the rest of the year?
He should, because like even when he's talking to the dispatchers, he's like pumping up the staff at Houston's.
They're gonna use it as a commercial.
Yeah, he's like these people are unbelievable. Maybe he already was eating for free.
For sure.
And he's going there. Is there anywhere you'd go 4 or 5 days a week?
Well, he's single. He feels comfortable there.
Yeah,
they
no,
treat
I'm
him
just
well.
saying, like any restaurant that you like enough that you'd go eat there 4 or 5 days a week.
I think there was other reasons why he was going there 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay.
I think he liked
just likes
the
to hang
conversations and the
people.
people.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that probably makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Did you ever fight him or anything, or no?
Well, I did, actually. He was trying to make the team in training camp. I was with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he asked me in an exhibition game, and I was like...
He was with who, Arizona?
He was with Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was like, buddy, I'm 35. It's exhibition. Like, what are we doing here? And he's like, come on, I'm trying to make the team. I'm like, okay. And like, quite honestly, like that's not my fight. Like he's
a heavy.
tough. He's a tough guy. He's tougher fighter than I am. So I did okay. I'm not really a killer.
You were 35?
So. Yeah.
In Toronto?
Yeah.
Really?
Really.
You had like several years after that, though.
I played in Toronto. Then I played in
Calgary,
San Jose, Chicago.
Yeah.
So maybe I was 34.
Okay, maybe. We had to double check that.
I was 38 when I retired, buddy. Almost 39.
Okay.
So
okay. I was thinking maybe. Well, I'm just thinking like you were here in St. Louis. I didn't realize you stayed here till you were 35.
34.
Okay, 34. Well.
But you know how you have a birthday every year?
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah. So
okay.
I turned 35.
All right.
And then...
I should know that's the way it works if you like change. The Rangers, they're losing every game, Jamal. Full disclosure, when we record this show, they play the Buffalo Sabres tonight, so somebody's got to win that game, right? Okay. There's only 2 games on the docket tonight, so go ahead and tune in and watch that one.
Yeah.
Who's going to win that one? Just so you can go ahead and make your prediction now. I think the Rangers
win that one.
Okay. They're just finding ways to lose. And it's always the coach. I mean, we're talking about Peter Laviolette, who's, won a Stanley Cup, obviously. He's one of the most successful in terms of wins, one of the most successful coaches in NHL history. I mean, is it always on the coach? Like what about like management? What about the players? Maybe you're not as good as you thought you were? I mean, Sean Avery he's just crushing the Rangers every single day with his PowerPoint presentations. But he does make some good points. And Zibanejad is always at the scene of the crime, and he's supposed to be one of the leaders on that team.
You know how this works. When things go bad, people try to do their own thing. It goes worse. People try to do more. You should do less. There's finger pointing, and I always say that things go downhill. Mm-hmm. GM's gonna say, "I got to the owner. I got the right players."
Yeah.
Look at it's basically the same team as last year.
Right.
Coach is gonna say, "I'm playing the best players. Who else do you want me to play?" Mm-hmm. And then the coach is gonna blame the fourth line and take the fourth line guys out in and out of the lineup, mm-hmm. and like that, like they're the problem. So it's always tough. It's always tough. You can point the finger to what happened in the summer in regard to getting Shesterkin done, the rumors swirling around their captain, mm-hmm. all the negativity around that. The bottom line is, everyone shares in that responsibility.
Yeah.
And the only way they get out of it is together.
Yeah. The Brady Tkachuk rumors were interesting. I mean, just speaking to sources close to that situation, I mean, I know the general manager of Ottawa called Brady to say, hey, this is completely BS. It's not true, which I'm sure he appreciated the GM calling. And, I don't know if Brady hasn't asked for a trade. I don't know if he's wanting to be traded. It doesn't sound like he wants to be traded. I would think that if you're Brady Tkachuk and you get to that point where you want to be traded, I think you do it at a time when your no move already kicks in, where you can kind of dictate where you go, and you do it within that window when you can negotiate an extension. So whoever trades for you can automatically lock you up for another 8 years or whatever. And so I don't think we're there yet, but you have Ottawa accusing the Rangers of soft tampering. That's the verbiage they're using there. How do you look at that?
This is the way I look at it. And I'm not a manager. I'm just speculating on the way things perhaps work. Mm-hmm. Isn't it prudent for every GM to get a sense for what every player could covet, could get? So if I ask you, and I'm the GM of the Ottawa Senators, and I say, we're not making the playoffs again, mm-hmm. Hey, you guys are struggling too. Right. What would you give me for a Brady Tkachuk? Mm-hmm. I'm doing my job to find out what could I possibly get. I think that's part of doing the job. It doesn't mean you want to trade him.
Every GM should be talking to every GM.
They should all be talking about it.
They're on text chains and everything,
I think that's part of doing it. Yeah. It's like, and then you would probably say, are you serious? You really, well, you know what? Things aren't going well. Right. I got to see what's out there. Mm-hmm. And his contract his no move kicks in a year. Yeah. And I don't know what he's going to want to do if he has the control. I got to do my due diligence. Right. That is smart managing. Mm-hmm. And so, is he going to say that to him that he did that? No, it's his player. But Is that likely that what I think that happened? Yes. And if Steve Stales hasn't done that work, then maybe he's not doing the work he should.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a smart guy. He's gonna,
Even though he may not be looking to necessarily
That's what I mean.
trade him.
and he probably is not, but
No.
that's part of doing the job.
Mhm.
I've got this guy, and this guy that are, these are the clauses that kick in. I've got to do the due diligence to get ahead of where they are, what they would command.
Yeah.
So I have an idea. If I get to that point with my management team, I'm not doing it in a scramble.
And you just know what I know what I can get for this player. You
But
know
that's
what I mean?
part of what you have to do. If you wait till you need a deal done in the next 3 weeks, it's too late,
It
and then
is.
they got you.
You lose the leverage. Yeah, no, it's interesting. The Trouba situation, I look at it a couple different ways, Jamal, because, what Chris Drury did, and his reputation is getting a little bit damaged, just because of the Barclay Boudreaux situation and whatnot. But you know what? I kind of get it. And he's got a player's mentality, right? He played for a long time, had a lot of success as a player. Now he's on the other side, and he's management. But, if you have a player making $8 million and you don't want that player anymore, or you don't feel like he's providing the necessary impact to the team that would be equivalent of an $8 million salary, and the player has a no trade, and you go to that player and he says, no, I'm not leaving. Well, the loophole there is that, okay, well, then I can put you on waivers. And the player's like, well, I don't want to go on waivers. So then he eventually accepts the deal, and now he's a member of Anaheim. I'm curious how you see that impacting. And people are like, well, players aren't going to want to sign in New York. Oh, yeah, they just turned around and gave their goalie the richest contract in the history of the NHL for goaltenders. They gave him $92 million. So, I think players are like, okay, yeah, I will go there because they're paying. And guess what? No matter where you play in the NHL, the check's still cash. So I'm just curious how you view that and how you think players do.
Well, I think Trouba's first issue should be with his agent, who at an $8 million salary did not get him a no movement.
Full no trade, or at least
no movement, because then no move you can't
be placed on waivers.
Yeah. If you just got a no trade, then that's his own fault.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, at the end of the day, this is the way it works. If they want, it doesn't matter if you have a no move. If they don't want you anymore, no one wants to be where they're not wanted.
Mm-hmm.
What it does allow you to do is have some choice in where you're going.
Yeah.
A certain player that you know well called me over to his house, was a big prominent player in our team, and let me know that the GM had told him that he's going to move him, but he has to approve it, or he can stay, and we were struggling as a team. This player just said, no, I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, they said, well, no, we're gonna waive you.
So
they're gonna bitch. So why would you want to stay? So I took the trade.
I told this story because I know who you're talking about. Because I remember calling the player, and he told me. I told the story on Canada Strict, so I'll say it right now. It was Dougie Weight.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember calling Chris Pronger and being like, the Blues are trading Dougie Weight to Anaheim for Andy McDonald. And he was like, there's zero chance they would do that. And he literally hung up the phone on me. Then he called me back and was like, oh, you're right. Yeah. He's like, I don't know why we're trading Andy McDonald, because Andy was a good player at that stage, really good player. But anyway, I remember calling Dougie, and he was like, no. I said, no, I'm not going. And management at the time basically was telling him, well, then guess what? You're going to be in the press box. You're not going to play. They strong-armed him to where a couple days later he accepted it, and fans were all over me because I had reported that he wasn't being traded, and then he did get traded, and I reported that he was going to get traded too. But I was like, yeah, well, he turned it down. He had that luxury. But again, that's when I first learned from my side of the table, Jamal, which is way different than you guys, but that this is a business, and if a team wants to get rid of you or move you, they're going to do whatever they need to do to make sure that happens. That's
exactly the point that I'm making, is that they had just redone their kitchen, redone their whole first floor.
Yes.
I thought he was coming over, having me over to show me that. We went downstairs, and I could tell that something was going on, and it was not good. And that was tough to hear. And I honestly advised him, like, dude, you got to go. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, like,
why?
Because it was better for him. As a teammate and as a friend, and they were in a good position. And for him as a friend, that was the right thing for him.
And it extended
he
his
felt
career
like he was
too.
abandoning us because he's such a good person.
Yeah.
But that was the right move for him.
Why is St. Louis, at least during your era, why was it such a comfortable place for veterans to play?
I think that you have a safe net. The community wraps its arms around you as a player. You don't feel a tremendous amount of pressure. There's one paper at the time.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of negativity around the team, especially for the higher end players. And so it's a comfortable life.
Yeah.
It's an easy place to live. And especially if you have kids, it's perfect. For the schools are fantastic and all those reasons. So, and when you're in a winning environment and your life is comfortable and you're not in traffic, even though sometimes we complain about traffic on 270, that's not traffic.
No, it's not.
So,
did you find it easier than the other places you played?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Playing in Toronto, are you kidding me?
San Jose even, right?
Well, San Jose, there was pressure because we were supposed to win.
I'm just talking about getting around town and whatever.
It was easy.
Schools and all
it was
that.
easy.
Yeah.
Because we lived in Willow Glen and walked the kids to school and those things. But Chicago was not easy.
No,
you probably should have lived in the first suburb that was available, but living in Lincoln Park was not for me, not with a young family.
So were your kids going to school in the suburbs?
No, they're going to private school in Lincoln Park, but you're renting a house that if you bought it, cost you $2 million, and you don't have a yard, so you got to go walk a block and a half to go to a public yard, which is fine. It's a different experience, but it's like, really?
I remember you telling me the house you were living in San Jose, like it was not a very big house, right? But
No,
you
it
were
was
paying
like 14.
way more than you were paying here in St. Louis.
2010. It was like $6,500 a month, no basement, 3 bedrooms, and the 1 bedroom didn't have a closet, so
basically
it was nice, but it was. You were outside all the time, cooked outside, no bugs. Like it was beautiful every day, 70 degrees. I get that part, but the real estate it's ridiculous. Most expensive place I've ever lived.
Buffalo. It's funny you bring that up because like Buffalo right now is like, I mean, like their GM made a comment recently being like, well, there's no palm trees here, like basically saying like it's hard to get veteran players to want to come play here in Buffalo. But I didn't like that the general manager said that publicly. Like, he's not the marketing guy. His job is to, sign the best players, make the best trades, put together the best team. And I know he's at a disadvantage, but it can't always be about the weather. I mean, there's a lot of places around the league that have bad weather. Detroit has bad weather. You look at the Canadian cities, Winnipeg has bad weather. They're competing at a real high level right now. We'll see how sustainable that is moving forward with the cap going up and their financial issues that they have in Winnipeg. But, like, come on, Buffalo. Like, at some point, you got to figure it out, don't you?
I think he's frustrated. I think that
Kevin Adams,
players, we're the exact same age, played college together at the exact same time. Our careers married each other. He was at Miami of Ohio. Okay. Surprising first-round pick to Boston, but had a nice career. My point is this. I think he would like to take that back because people would like to play in Winnipeg. Why do you think people want to play in Winnipeg now? They got a chance to win. Like, people want to play where you have a chance to win.
Toronto.
But I'm saying, like, it's cold there too.
Yeah, exactly. Detroit.
But if you're winning, you can get people to go there.
Yeah, exactly.
It has nothing to do with that. If Buffalo was a top 5 team in the league,
people and the fans, you're the biggest show in town. I mean, obviously the Bills are huge too, but they love hockey. In Buffalo.
Yes. So
you played there when they were at their top.
I don't know. To me, it's just say, you know what? We've got to be better. Once we're better, we're going to get people are going to want to play here.
Yeah.
It's a great place to live. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's why if you're an owner, man, you got to hit on your GM too. I'm not saying that he's the issue, but I'm saying if you have a really good GM who's in full control and knows what he's doing, it just takes so much pressure off of the owner. Find me a good owner who's got a terrible GM. It just doesn't work that way. You're a good owner because you got great people working underneath you that are running the organization. I want to touch on the Blues real quick. They go 3-1 on this West Coast swing, or Canadian swing, I should say. They started in Winnipeg, ended going through Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver, winning a couple games in overtime. Robert Thomas was unbelievable in these 4 games. He had 9 points, or 7 points in the 4 games. No, 9 points in the 4 games plus 7. Everybody pretty much was a plus. The power play looks better. You got Bolduc, the young kid, scoring goals, demonstrating his ability to shoot the puck. This Dylan Holloway is playing unbelievable hockey right now, Jamal. Like, he's skating, he's getting open, he's finding guys, he's scoring, he's winning battles. Like, I'll never understand, man. We'll see how this plays out. I know it's still in the infancy stages with Broberg and Dylan Holloway, but that is one of the biggest head scratchers I've ever seen. You draft these two kids in the first round and you lose them to offer sheets. I'll never understand how you can let these guys get away. But
yeah, and you know what it is? It's confidence and opportunity. You watched the clip the other day of Monty having a side conversation to Bolduc.
mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how important that is and what that means to a guy to give him the freedom to say, we want you shooting the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do not even think. And skilled players need to play with that swagger and with that freedom. And Monty knows that. He was a unbelievable player
in college.
And so probably born 25 years too early. And so I think that's a delicate, amazing touch that he'll have
mm-hmm.
with really good players, with any player, you know, to give them the confidence that they can be more and that they're going to be given the leash to make mistakes
mm-hmm.
now and again. And if, you know, confidence is a two-way streak, right? He's giving them the confidence, and then it's upon the player to give the coach confidence back in them by going and doing what he's asking you to do.
Yeah.
So it's one, give credit to Monty for giving it to Bolduc, but then Bolduc has to go out and do it, which he has.
Yeah.
So now he gets to keep the confidence.
Yeah.
And it's a cyclical thing, right? Like, it's not just the coach gives it to you.
Right.
You have to give it back to the coach.
Yeah.
And so that's the important part that I think Monty really understands.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. Do you like Thomas back with Kyrou and Buchnevich? They put those guys back together, and Montgomery comes out publicly and says that this guy's a winger, Buchnevich, which we all pretty much knew. They experimented with him at center. You're paying him $8 million too, right? You need him to be at his best and play with the most confidence that he has as a player, which he obviously is way more comfortable playing on the wing versus playing center. But putting those three back together, they may not keep them together at all times, but as long as it's going and you want to get all guys going at the same time, you always have that option to go back to that.
Yeah, I think I don't want to digress, but I'm going to answer your question maybe in a different way. I think that the evolution of Thomas's face-off play has really changed the dynamic of what they're able to do, because now they're starting with the puck more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people really appreciate what he's done. I mean, when he came in the league, he was under 50%, and now I believe he's in the top 10.
Yeah, he's over 60%.
That is a massive. You don't get there without understanding the work that it takes. And so his ability to fix that part of his game tells me a few things about him that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. That he is like what special players do, is every summer they don't reinvent, they find new things to do well. And there's no better example than two areas. That is face-off, jumping up, and his willingness to shoot the puck more.
Yeah.
And the way you saw it really illustrated for me was on the power play goal by Kyrou.
Yeah.
If this was 2 or 3 years ago, and Thomas is coming downhill on the strong side, and Kyrou's on the back door, everyone's assuming he's going to pass it.
Mm-hmm.
And the goalie's leading, and the passing lane might get taken away.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he's been shooting it for the last year and a half,
you have to honor that.
You have to respect the shot.
Yeah. And Thomas is at 57%.
Yeah. That's anytime you're above 55, to me, is respect.
It used to be 50.
No. 55.
I mean, no, I'm just saying, like, if guys were over, Scotty Nickel always said that to me, if you're over 50%, then you're a good face-off guy. I guess you're winning more than half. But the top guys, over 55%.
55 to me is the barometer.
Yeah, and now he's winning 57%, which is why I said in my first segment, with Doug Armstrong being the general manager of the Canadian Olympic team, Robert Thomas is going to be on that team.
Because I think the timing of his injury really, I think if you could just rewind 2 weeks and he played like this, and he had 2 extra weeks, and this happened 2 weeks ago.
It's hard for this Army just to completely push and push and push to get him on there. He still may be on there if you have injuries and whatnot. He is certainly deserving and worthy to be on there from his skill set alone. But it may be a situation where maybe you don't make this team, but you make the team that you want to make, which is the Olympic team.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a couple of surprises. Obviously, the kid in Carolina was a little bit of a surprise, but doing their game the other night, like
he's damn good.
He can skate.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he could skate like that.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, so it's
maybe Celebrini, the guy you're seeing play a lot, maybe he can find his way out there next year. It's going to be hard. I'm not
like
saying
Olympic, yes. Not like now.
Olympic, yeah.
Yeah, like no, this.
Well, everyone's talking about Bedard all season long. I'm like, listen, Bedard's not playing as well as Celebrini, so let's.
Celebrini has the most. He's number one in entries, offensive zone entries.
Yeah,
as an 18-year-old, like McDavid, McKinnon behind him.
He had some great ones last night. Did you do the game last night or no?
Yeah,
you did.
And he steals more pucks than any other player.
Oh, really?
Like puck battles, he's got number one.
Stripping pucks. Because Luke Cunnin had a couple goals last night, but the first one was created by Celebrini. His entry, he made two great. He's just dancing in the neutral zone.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Yeah, no, he is. He's fun to watch too. So anyway, we'll see how this continues to go. But Dylan Holloway, all these guys, everything's kind of starting to fall into place. Everyone's being slotted where they should be slotted. Last question for you. They're in the honeymoon period right now. I talked to Army about this last week. Eventually, that turns into a marriage. When does that happen? At least for you, what do you think?
Probably 12 to 15 games. But I think the difference is that clearly he's changed some structural elements to their game, but he's got a pulse that they know that he cares. And it's nice that it had success, so they have a foundational that they can go back to point to the video to show. And I think he's a great coach. I think it's sustainable. I think that he's tapped into their emotional component that's required in this game. Yeah. And I think that's important. For me, I always needed that. And I think that just watching him do the check-ins with players on the ice, those things go a long way.
Will they make the playoffs?
Yes.
I think so too. The 3 points out right now, I think. But and I'll tell you this, Vancouver looked pretty damn good last night. When they want to turn it on, this Quinn Hughes is so good, Jamal. Like, I know it's Makar. This guy, if you gave me a choice, and those were the two options, as great as Makar is, I would have just as hard of a time as not taking Quinn Hughes. They're as similar as they are, they're different. And they're both great in their own ways. But I don't see Makar being significantly better than Quinn Hughes. He's got the puck the entire time. He plays different than anybody else in the league.
They're both exceptional. I mean, it's like
you'd have people
I
are
think
going to say
Makar's above him.
Yeah,
but
not by much.
But not throwing shade at it's not much.
No,
but I think those two are right there.
Though?
What is the difference?
There's a little size, I guess, a little bit.
I think there's a more physicality from Makar on occasion. Like I'm talking like there's once in a while he might
he may be better defensively, I guess.
He's a little bit harder, bigger. That helps, I'm sure, to defend. But
he has Jamal. I felt like he was on the ice the entire game, and every time he's on the ice, he just comes out of nowhere, and he's got ridiculous hands, like how he stick handles his way out of trouble. He may be the best passer as a defenseman in the league today. Who passes the puck better than Quinn Hughes? Nobody. His passing's ridiculous.
Better than Prongs?
Well, Prongs isn't in the league today.
Just want you to say it's better.
If Pronger was here, I'd say he's better than Prongs. But I don't know. Prongs was a hell of a passer, too.
Yeah.
All right, who brought you to Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community?
Well, it's Dobbs. They now have 43 locations. Dobbs offering winter driving deals on the best tire brands, including up to $275 savings on new Goodyear tires, plus other money saver deals on new sets of Cooper, Continental, and BF Goodrich tires. Click on go to Dobbs.com for complete details and all of their information on their valuable winter driving deals, not only on quality tires, but on expert auto service as well. Fantastic deals to help you get your family vehicles in top condition for the harsh winter ahead. Go to Dobbs.com for more.
Go to Dobbs.com. All right, what's for dinner?
Oh, Bartolino's. 5 restaurants now. Bartolino's South, Bartolino's Osteria, Chris's Pancake and Dining, Chris at the Docket, and Bartolino's Twin Oaks. Just went there. Unbelievable spot. You got to check it out. Forged many lasting relationships with their customers. Their family motto: cook good food, serve plenty, 50 plus years in business. Only 2 places to dine: at home or at one of Bartolino's family of restaurants.
See, that's where you could go eat 4 or 5 days a week.
There you go.
Bartolino's.
Absolutely. And get a little variety.
Hey, before we get to Sam Rosen, looking forward to that conversation coming up. But Arco Construction brings us a couple of the top ice rinks here in town. You know, they built the Shark Tank, too. I want to point that out. I always talk about Centene Community Ice Center, unbelievable 4-sheet facility where the Blues practice, and Maryville University, that 2-sheet facility. I saw Jamal out there this morning grinding it out, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, teaching the kids.
It's fun.
You know, and it is fun. I love being out there at Maryville, too. Arco Construction truly taking St. Louis hockey to the next level, one ice rink at a time. They also built Putt Shack, Top Golf, so they bring the fun to St. Louis as well. So John Comlos, Jeff Cook, everybody over there with Arco Construction. All right, let's step aside. Sam Rosen in his 40th season and his final season as the voice of the New York Rangers. He joins me next. All right, back here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Sam Rosen, legendary voice, Hockey Hall of Fame voice. How many Hall of Fames are you in, Sam?
Oh, let's see. The Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame, and the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. So those are the only 3. Last week I received the Lester Patrick Award, but that's given by the NHL. It was awarded at the USA Hockey Hall of Fame induction. So I'm not in the Hall of Fame, but I have the Lester Patrick Award, and that's very, very special.
Oh, very special award. And a lot of people have received that award over the years, legendary figures in the game. And listen, it's all deserving. And you know, from the time you made that announcement that this would be your final year behind the microphone with the New York Rangers, Sam, I knew I wanted to have you on and just kind of reflect a little bit, go down the memory lane with you in terms of, you know, how your career started. You pretty much have done everything. You know, a lot of kids, you know you from the NFL, watching you broadcast games over the years on Sundays, and of course, you know, your career with the New York Rangers. What other sports did you do? Was it always primarily football and hockey?
Well, when I started at MSG, and I was hired as a part-timer, a backup to Marv Albert on radio, I did basketball, Knicks basketball. And after one season of Knicks basketball, backing up Marv, doing several games, they came to me and asked me if I could do hockey. And I said, sure, I can do hockey. And they said, do you have any tapes? And I had a collection of tapes and handed it to them, and they liked it. And I've been doing hockey ever since at MSG. One of the big breaks for me was in 1979. I was at the U.S. Open Tennis Championships in Queens, New York, and covering it for United Press International Audio Network. And as I'm wrapping up my day's reports and I'm about to leave, the phone rings. And on the other end is Scotty Connell, who at one time was the executive producer of sports at NBC. He was part of the administrative group that put ESPN on the air. They were going on the air in the beginning of September of 1979, and he asked me if I could do a football game. And I said yes. It was Grambling versus Morgan State at Yankee Stadium, and it was a 3-man operation. I called the play-by-play. The color analyst was Paul Warfield, Hall of Fame wide receiver, used to be with the Cleveland Browns, Miami Dolphins, and the producer-director was a fellow named Toby Cunningham from Detroit. And We were throwing hand signals from the booth down to the field, and we couldn't do the game live. That was part of the agreement ESPN had with the NCAA. It was delayed broadcast. So our game went on. We recorded it Saturday, and it went on the air Monday. And so when ESPN went on the air, and Scotty Connell would call me and say, "Could you do boxing?" And I said, "Sure." And "Could you do women's field hockey?" "Sure." And whatever he asked me, I said yes. And he said, "Is there any sport you can't do?" And I said to him, "If I can't do it, I'll find somebody to help me learn how to do it." So I did some interesting stuff. I did a studio game for Australian rules football. I called a table tennis match between South Korea and the United States. It's been a great run. The ESPN run was great. I did their first boxing shows that they put on the air before they signed a deal with Bob Arum and Top Rank Boxing. And then Fox came along in 1995, right after the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in '94. The next season, Fox signed a 5-year deal with the NHL to do hockey. And I was one of the lead play-by-play announcers. It was Mike Emmerich and John Davidson as one pair, myself and Joe Micheletti, the other pair. We were the lead announcers. And Fox had hockey for 5 years. And during the course of that time, they came to me in 1997 and asked me to do some football when they had extra games. The weeks they had 7 or 8 games on the network, they needed an extra guy to do football. And I was happy to say yes to that. And that ran for about 20 years with Fox doing football. So it's been super. I've done so many things, been to so many places, met so many wonderful people. Can't ask for better a run than I've had.
No, two things that you said there that stand out. Number one, you did a girls' field hockey game, and one of my daughters is playing field hockey. So if you can explain the rules and understand what's going on in that sport, let me know, because I've watched about 100 games here, and I still have no idea why the whistle is blowing every day or every other second. And the fact that you work with Joe Micheletti long before he became your broadcast partner as he is today with MSG calling Rangers games. I'm curious. And this is a broad question, but again, I just want to know, like, what's the most famous game or event that you've been a part of? I mean, is it the 1994 Stanley Cup Final, or is there something else?
Well, I would have to say there are a couple of games that I'll point out. One was before I was actually doing play-by-play. I was statistician on the Knicks radio network. Jim Gordon, who was my predecessor as the Rangers play-by-play man on TV for MSG Network, was the play-by-play voice of the Knicks radio network. The end of 1969, the beginning of 1970, the Knicks ran off a win streak of 18 games, and it was the forerunner to them going all the way and winning the NBA championship. And Jim Gordon was doing the play-by-play on the Knicks radio network, small stations in upstate New York, in Massachusetts, Connecticut, about 30 to 40 stations. And he called me and asked me to do his stats. Well, during the course of the broadcast, he would, instead of my giving him the stats, he said, "Hey, they're your stats. You read them on the air." So at halftime and at post-game, I would do the stats to wrap up the game. But 1970, the championship, I was there. When the Knicks won their NBA championship, their first NBA championship, and when Willis Reed walked onto the court in Game 7, limped onto the court, hit his first 2 shots, left the game after that, and Walt Frazier took over and had a career game to lead the Knicks to a Game 7 win over the Lakers. I was there for that one. I was in Lake Placid in 1980. covering the Olympics for United Press audio network, and we couldn't do play-by-play, but I could do clips. So part of my 60-second or 90-second reports on the games included maybe 30 seconds of play-by-play of what was going on in the game or calling a goal here or there. But I was in Lake Placid for the Olympic gold medal by the United States. And to me, that was, as far as hockey in the U.S. is concerned, that was the greatest moment ever. And then, of course, you mentioned the Rangers Stanley Cup, which is the only Stanley Cup they have won in 84 years. And I had the privilege, the honor of calling it because it was the last year that regional networks could stay with their team all the way through the playoffs. Yeah. So I got to call Game 7 at Madison Square Garden and the only Rangers Stanley Cup. But I also got to call Stanley Cup championship games and finals on NHL radio. And I was there when Ray Bourque when Joe Sakic handed the Stanley Cup to Ray Bourque as the Colorado Avalanche won the Cup in 2001. That's an unforgettable moment. But I call the Stanley Cup for NHL radio from 1996 to 2008.
All right, so the 1994 Stanley Cup Final, and of course you've got the iconic call, "This one will last a lifetime." You know, as a broadcaster, when do you start thinking about what you might say? Do you wake up thinking about it that morning? Are you thinking about it for years prior to that, and then it finally happens? Walk us through with that.
I would say in that series against Vancouver, Rangers went in as favorites. They came out of the Eastern Conference final against the Devils in a really, really great, tough 7-game series, lost game 1, and then won the next 3 games. So before game 5, everyone thought this series is over. Rangers are coming home from Vancouver, having won 2 games in Vancouver. They led the series 3-1, and all everyone could talk about is where are the post-game parties, where are you going to be, where are the players going to be. So everyone thought it was over. So while I'm getting ready, I'm thinking, okay, what points do I want to make? Curses are over, jinxes are over. They finally done it, something along those lines. Well, what happens? Vancouver jumps out to a 3-0 lead. Rangers come back to tie it 3-3. Vancouver wins the game 6-3. Now it's 3-2, and we're going to Vancouver. Game 6, the Canucks dominated Game 6. Now the series is over. We're going back to New York for Game 7. And you get up thinking, you know what? The way this Ranger team has been jinxed through the years, you have to be ready for anything. So the thoughts of them winning were, okay, it's finally here. They finally did it. But then you had to hold back and say, what happens if they lose? So you have to be ready. But the way the game unfolded, Rangers got the lead. Vancouver came back at them. Rangers hold on and win. And what happened right at the end of the game is there were 2 icings. One that probably shouldn't have been called. The other was an icing. 2 icings stopped the celebration. Everybody's ready to just go crazy at Madison Square Garden. And those 2 icings stopped it. They win the face-off with 1.6 seconds to go, and that's where it just came out. The waiting is over because we had to wait for those 2 face-offs. The waiting is over. The Rangers are the Stanley Cup champions, and for me, this one will last a lifetime. And it's as special as any moment can get when you're calling not only the 7th game of a championship series, but it's your team in your building. Can't get any better than that.
Yeah, and I mean, who would have thought that the Rangers haven't won another one since then? So again, it may last a lifetime for a lot of people.
We had a reunion a few weeks ago. Mark Messier had a reunion. About 15 players came. I was there. Neil Smith, the general manager, was there. Mike Keenan, the Rangers' winning head coach, was there. To a man, everyone said, "Man, it's been 30 years." It's hard to believe, but it's been 30 years since they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and it's a hard trophy to win. We saw that here in St. Louis just a few years ago, and you hope you don't wait another 30 to 40 years, but
That's right.
you can't predict it. What would you have said if the Rangers lost? You want to break that news for
us?
If
they lost? It would have been, I don't know, it would have been like somebody stabbed me with a dagger in the heart.
Yeah, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. No. We don't ever want to hear what you would have said.
No, you really don't want to go through that, and especially when a team has been unable to win it as long as they had, and finally after 54 years, they finally were able to celebrate.
The last 40 years, and some people may not know, and I don't even know if I remember this or if I ever knew it. I don't know if I would have been alive back then, but Phil Esposito would have been your first broadcast partner. But it's hard to believe in the last 40 years you've only had two, right? Between John Davidson and Joe Micheletti, two of the best to ever do it.
That's really one of the great benefits and good luck charms that I've had is when they came to me in 1984, before the 84-85 season, the people of Madison Square Garden said, "We're going to make a change, and we'd like you to take over as the TV play-by-play man." And when I took it, Phil Esposito was there. We worked together for 2 years. Phil was a lot of fun to work with. He loves to have fun. He's in his 80s now, and he's still the same gregarious person with the big personality. It was an interesting time because Phil didn't like to go to morning skates. I would say, "Phil, you got to go to the morning skate and get a feel for what the teams are doing and talk to people." No, I'll only be a distraction. I'm not going to any morning skates." So my job was to make sure I knew where the players were, because if it happened once, it happened every game. A couple of times, a player would make a play and Phil would say, "Where'd they get this guy from, Sam?" And I had to quickly, "They got him here. They just called him up from the minors. They made a trade for him 3 weeks ago." So that was my role. But then John Davidson, when Phil was promoted, he became the general manager. I like to say I got him the general manager's job with the Rangers. So he stepped up to become general manager after we worked 2 years together. John Davidson, when his career basically got cut short because of injuries, and he became a third man in the Rangers broadcast booth, he felt uncomfortable in that role. He went up to Canada, worked for Hockey Night in Canada, and really became the premier hockey broadcast analyst. And MSG hired him at the start of 1986, and we worked together for 20 years. And then he became the general manager of the St. Louis Blues and left the Garden. And the best choice for me was Joe Micheletti. Joe was working on Long Island doing the Islanders telecast under the MSG network umbrella. So that was an easy shift. He came across. We knew each other from our working days together with Fox, and he just slid into the analyst chair, and we've been together for 19 years. So you talk about being fortunate and lucky and having an ease and comfort at work. That's the way it was for me.
Yeah, only have a couple more minutes here, Sam, but I do want to ask you about the current state of the Rangers real quick. I mean, they just traded their captain and Jacob Trouba. There's been all this noise, surrounding the Brady Tkachuk and Ottawa calling it soft tampering and all this stuff that's going on. What's your take on it? Where are we headed with the Rangers, and why have they been so inconsistent, or maybe consistently below average, I guess, or not, meeting expectations, which is, surprised a lot of people heading into the season?
Andy, they started off very well. Obviously, they came off a Final Four last season, got to the Final Four. They believe they were very close. They lost a couple of overtime games to the Florida Panthers, lost the series in 6, and they came back hoping to just pick up where they left off, and they got off to a good start. Peter Laviolette, experienced coach, the core of the team was still there, but a couple of things happened in the offseason that seemed to upset the inner workings of the team. The possibility of trading the captain, Jacob Trouba, that became public knowledge. The way they saved money on the Barclay Goodrow contract. Barclay, a very, very important part. A good team man, played very, very well in the playoffs, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with Tampa, but they wanted to unload his contract, and they felt it would really help them make some moves during the offseason. They put him on waivers. He was picked up by San Jose, and that seemed to upset the inner workings of the team. But still, they got off to a good start, 5-0-1. They're looking good. Shesterkin was playing great. Quick was playing great. The goaltending was probably ahead of the rest of the team in winning those games. Shesterkin, a couple of games, he almost single-handedly won. But then it seemed to get off kilter, and I can't, it's not easy to put your finger on it. The top players, other than Artemi Panarin, have not been the top players. They haven't gotten the performance they expected out of Mika Zibanejad as the number 1 center. Chris Kreider, a perennial 30-goal scorer, has been a 50-goal scorer. His performance was a little off. Defensively, Trouba was a little slow. Ryan Lindgren got hurt in preseason. He didn't start the season. That was a loss. So defensively, they struggled. The pressure built on the goaltending, and now it's taken a turn for the worse, and they've only won 2 out of their last 10 games. So it's a struggle right now. They unloaded the contract of Jacob Trouba, another big contract, to give themselves maneuverability to make moves either during this season or next in the off season. But I think it's more to have that maneuverability come trade deadline time.
Yeah.
And that upsets the apple cart as well, because you're trading your captain. And that's it's difficult for several of those young players have been helped along in their careers by Jacob Trouba, most notably Keandre Miller, his defensive partner for a couple of seasons, Braden Schneider, a young defenseman who's really a good player, and now being asked to do some of the things that Jacob Trouba did. So that's been a problem. I think they've lost their confidence, and for a while, Shesterkin was not playing the way he had been. Last game, he was better. He got his contract settled. Yeah. He's locked in for 8 years. I think that will help settle things down, but they're going to have to rely on him until they regain their confidence. These next few games will be very interesting. At Buffalo, home against the LA Kings, who are playing very well. Then they go on the road to St. Louis Sunday night. Tuesday in Nashville, Friday in Dallas, and then home against Carolina and at New Jersey before Christmas. Tough games, and the Rangers have to find a way to win and right the ship.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing how it plays out. Always a lot of drama, in the Big Apple, So, we're all paying attention to it. Real quick, last thing for you. Your favorite place to call a game, and what are you going to miss the most about not broadcasting NHL hockey?
The Garden is really a great place. Since they renovated the building, the broadcast location is into the ice. The other place is Bell Center in Montreal. Yeah. They have the gondola there, a lot of workspace. Again, into the ice, you can feel the game, you can feel the hits, and you can see all the plays developing. And I'm going to miss the players. I'm going to miss being around the players, because all of them, Andy, have stories, whether they're from a small town in the US or a small town in Canada or a small town anywhere in the countries in Europe. They all have stories as to how they reach the top of their profession. And I love that about them.
Yeah, and no one told the stories better than you did. Sam, so many people were raised on the game, listening to you, grew up listening to you, idolizing you. You're truly one of the best to ever do it. Thanks for doing this. I got to bring you back on, Sam. I got so many more stories. My producer in the back, he keeps giving me this. You know what? That universal sign has never changed. That's the same as it was 40 years ago. It means wrap it up. You know, I can talk forever. So thanks for doing this. I'll be back in touch. And will I see you on Sunday in St. Louis?
Absolutely. I'll be there.
All right. I look forward to it.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me on. And I'm available.
Yeah, you're the best. And I'll take you up on that. I promise.
Thank you.
We'll see you Sunday. That's Sam Rosen, the best, man. One of the greatest to ever do it. And certainly love having him here on Hockey Sense with us. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week here on live from the Half Coast Studios. So many different things to tell you about First Community, but the holiday shopping promotion still exists. Credit card rates, they continue to exceed 25%. Now, that's based on national averages. It's not good news. If you're planning to spend like a lot of people out there come Christmas time, but you can get that First Community Platinum Visa with a rate of 7.9%. And that is exactly what I said, 7.9%. You heard me right. Get it today. Check it out. You have to, no annual fee, zero annual fee. But it gets better. Any purchases made with the First Community credit card between November 27th and December, well, they have a date there, 2.99% financing. Go to firstcommunity.com. They'll give you all the information there. Of course, Four Hands Brewing Company, Blue Note Roofing, David Novak, Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Everybody over there at Arco Construction, all our sponsors who bring us Hockey Sense each and every week. We hope everyone has enjoyed the show today. Great conversation with Sam Rosen. I'm going to bring him back on. We got to go a full hour with him. I mean, there's so much stuff to get into. We appreciate Jamal Mayers for joining us as well. Maddie behind the glass, always making stuff happen here live at the Half Coast Studios. I'm Andy Strickland. Subscribe today on all the podcast platforms, wherever you listen to your podcast, including YouTube. Appreciate all the support. Reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. We'll do it again next week. Have a great week, everybody.